Hey everybody, Appa here. Today I kind of wanted to go into Cloning Gallery Priest and break it down a little bit. It's something that we've talked about on CoinConcede, which is the podcast I run with Ridiculous Hat and Bodicus. We've talked about this uh, last week's episode because it's pretty good against the hunters of the format. Hunter's such a big presence on ladder right now. And it has a lot of game versus a lot of other decks as well, and can just randomly cheese out wins with just a really good Xerix cloning gallery. This is the Four-Minion version list, which is different from most lists you'll see. Most lists will run the Gargoyle, Gilded Gargoyle, and they'll run Lyra for value, as well as the Lich King, because pulling that off of Shadow Essence is very strong, and they'll usually run Witchwood Grizzly as well, which is the 312 taunt, because resurrecting that is very strong against aggro. But this build's much more streamlined. It's more single focused, which is it's almost entirely all in on Mind Blast and Holy Smite. So the only four minions you play are two Radiant Elementals, Ziliax, Prophet Velen, and Malygos. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Technically 5, but 4 different copies of minions. And that the reason why we picked the number 4 is because once Lesser Diamond Spellstone is upgraded all the way, it resurrects 4 different minions. So in this version, your Spellstone, after you've played all your minions, will always resurrect a Malygos, a Prophet Velen, a Ziliax, and a Radiant Elemental, which lets you play Mind Blast and Holy Smite for a ton of damage. You also have the added benefit in this deck, if you Cloning Gallery before you've drawn any minions, you'll have Malygos, Velen, Ziliax, and the 2 Radiants. So if you have any Mind Blasts in your hand, they'll be free. So each Mind Blast will deal 20 and cost 0 if you get the Nut Cloning Gallery, basically. So I guess I'll just go through the card choices in the deck and break them down. Then we'll get into some games. I'll probably play 20, 30 minutes of some games. I haven't really figured out the formula for these kind of videos yet, but that's probably what we'll just start with. So we have 2 Power Word Shields for Cycle. They're the card I'm the least sure of in the deck. Like, it increases your ability to generate or to dig through your deck very quickly, but it can be kind of awkward if you don't draw your Radiance early, because you have to frequently Power Word Shield your opponent's minions, which, I mean, you don't care about a lot of the time because you have, like, Psychic Scream, but it can get a little weird, and I think the Power Word Shields can be looked at in the future as something to cut, but for now we're going to play with them. Like I referred to earlier, Holy Smite and Mind Blast paired with Velen and Malygos are our main win conditions. We play 2 copies of Shadow Visions. It's one of the most powerful cards in the format. It's one of the main reasons to play Priest, really, is the power of this card, because it can discover a copy of anything in our deck. Our deck is mostly spells, so we have a lot of flexibility with what we get offered each game with Shadow Visions, and you can really sculpt the game around what your options are. Then we have 2 Spirit Lashes. Spirit Lash is really solid against aggro. Even if it doesn't clear board, it can just be 2 mana, gain you some life, and that can be good enough to buy you enough time. And then when paired with Velen and Malygos, it pumps the damage that it does, which also pumps the amount of healing that it does, because it has lifesteal, so it heals for each damage dealt. So if there's 5 minions on board, and you have Malygos as one of them, then your Spirit Lash will deal 30 and heal for 30. Vivid Nightmare is in here as a bit of extra reach versus the slower decks, because what you can do with Eternal Servitude later in the game is you can resurrect a Velen and Vivid Nightmare it, and then that makes your Mind Blasts deal 20 by themselves, because the first Velen will double it to 10, and then it'll double it to 20 with the Mind Blast. So it's just an extra way to get some reach, versus the slow combo decks where maybe you didn't get to sculpt the game how you wanted. Maybe this is just an extra way to close out a game you can grab with Shadow Visions as well. Eternal Servitude is in here for either after Cloning Gallery or after a Shadow Essence. It can be used for some burst, or maybe resurrecting a Ziliax, or like Malygos Velen, just resurrect it and Spirit Lash, gain a bunch of life, try and draw to your Spellstones, that kind of stuff. It's a really flexible card in this deck. Mass Dispel's in here. It's another interesting choice. I don't think it's a bad choice, because what you want to do with this deck is churn through your deck as quickly as possible and get to your combo pieces, because it is such a linear strategy, and Mass Dispel does that while also sometimes like shrinking the board against aggro if they played a Fungomancer or like a Cold Blood or something. Then it's good against like Death Rattle Hunter. It has a lot of applications in this metagame, so it's mostly in here for card draw, but the silence definitely has relevance. And Mass Hysteria is one of the big draws to Priest right now, because most Hunter decks on ladder, Hunter's about a third of the ranked ladder right now. Like 1 out of every 3 games, you should be expected to play against at least a Hunter, and most of the Hunter decks are playing Lesser Emerald Spellstone. So this just straight up deals with the Spellstone by itself, which is nice. And it's also very strong against aggro. It's just a really nice early clear that Priest has access to now. Ziliax is in there for get rezzed, get pulled. It's basically the best anti-aggro tool that this deck has option to. You could play Grizzly over it, but the thing is, Ziliax is a proactively defensive card, meaning you get to decide what happens with it, whereas Grizzly is just naturally reactive. Like, you put it on the board, and then you're kind of at the mercy of if your opponent has a silence or a removal or something like that, whereas Ziliax just gets to do whatever you want with it. Shadow Essence, Spellstone we've already talked about, Velen and Malygos and Cloning Gallery we talked about. Anduin is just a really solid value card. It's nice AoE removal against big boards, and then it can also help close out games. So he's just in there as a really good card. Psychic Scream's another removal, mass removal spell. But unlike Mass Hysteria, this can deal with Death Rattle boards really cleanly. So against decks like Death Rattle Hunter, you can just Psychic Scream all their problematic Death Rattles into their deck and not have to worry about them. And then you don't care about the fatigue aspect coming into it, because you're just planning on Mind Blasting people. So, all right, with all that being said, let's get into some games. All right, so Rogue. This is probably Odd Rogue. Most rogues in Standard are Odd Rogue right now, which is not a great matchup for us. We can struggle a little bit at staving off early aggression, but getting a Mass Hysteria in our opening hand was a good draw. It'll help us clean up some of the early game a bit. It's funny that I was kind of talking down on Power Word Shield earlier in the deck intro, but Power Word Shield will actually be really good in this hand because we have the Radiant. It's just draws where you don't have Radiant Power Word Shield can get a little bit clunky. So we're just playing the Radiant out right now for tempo, because their usual turn 2 is just Dagger, and that's just not able to cleanly kill this Radiant, so they'd have to coin out a Deadly Poison or something like that. And they didn't have it, so we have a huge payoff for going for a little bit of a risky, unprotected Radiant Elemental. That was a pretty good draw. It's gonna come down a little bit late, but I mean, Cloning Gallery is probably the best card in the deck. Yeah, so this Radiant sticking on turn 2 is really fortunate for us. Now we just kind of get to dictate what happens with the board. Ooh, that was nice. That was a really good draw. So what I can and what I'm going to do is I'm going to attack into the Fledgling. It's going to put it down to 3-1, and then I'll Spirit Lash. And then I can heal my Radiant back up to 2-3. So, again, it doesn't die to the Dagger. So this Radiant's actually putting in a lot of work. And the next turn we get to Shadow Essence, most likely. Okay, so Radiant's finally going to die. That's fine. It's weird display lag. So I could Mass Hysteria, but I mean, all it does is kill off the Dire Mole. So it doesn't do very much. So I think I'm actually just not going to do anything this turn. Yeah, I think I'm just going to end the turn. The only card I'm really worried about would be Fungalmancer, but even then next turn I can just Holy Smite this and Mass Hysteria. I'm going to play the one that I kept, because they likely know that I kept AoE in my hand. If I would have played the Mass Hysteria off the top, if they're tracking my hand, they would have been able to kind of figure out that this card is also AoE, most likely. Because, like, what other kind of card would you keep against Odd Rogue? But that's kind of a high-level read. So, so here, I have two options here. I have a Radiant Elemental, Ziliax, Prophet Velen, and a Malygos in my deck right now. So, Shadow Essence has a 3 out of 4 chance to get something that my Holy Smite would help me clear this Thug with. And if I get the Ziliax, it just kills it outright. So I think I'm leaning towards that, because my other option is Mass Hysteria. These will bump into each other, kill the Blink Fox, and then I could Holy Smite the Hench Clan Thug. But I think it's just better to go for the Shadow Essence here. I have a 1 in 4 chance to just kill the Thug outright, and then a 2 out of 4 chance to hit a one of the spell buff minions in Velen and Malygos. That kind of stinks. Radiant was definitely the worst hit there. That was the 1 out of 4 we did not want to hit. I don't think we do anything here, though. I mean, a 5/5 is reasonably threatening enough to their board, and then we can potentially Anduin next turn if we need to clear off the Thug, because it'll get buffed with the weapon. Oh. Okay. Wonder if they're going all face with this, because it would be really, really good for me. If they dagger and go all face, I'm going to take some damage, but I can trade into the Lyra and then Anduin. Go face. Hit my face. I'm at 11. I know you want to put me to 6. Dang. I showed some discipline there. Unfortunate. Here, I'm actually gonna Power Word Shield the Lyra and then Mass Hysteria. Because Anduin wouldn't clear both of the minions, I don't want to play Anduin. I just want to get the Lyra and the Blink Fox off the board. I think my best draw would probably be maybe a Psychic Scream? But I'm just going to go for the Cloning Gallery here, I think. Am I? I don't know. This turn's kind of hard. So if I Cloning Gallery, I get a Radiant, the Ziliax, the Velen and the Malygos. Like, I can't play the Mind Blast because it'll cost 1. I think I still do it, though, because I pull the 1/1 Ziliax. I also get to Power Word Shield this, which is nice. And I'm going to kill the Thug here. This might seem weird, like, not sending 14 damage to their face, but it's likely that I die next turn if I don't kill that. So I think I'm set up well enough to, if I survive this next turn, win the game with the Resurrects and the Mind Blast. So I think I just want to stave off as much damage right now as I can. Okay, I mean, if they haven't played anything by now, I don't think they have lethal, which is nice. Okay, deadly poison. Huh. So that puts me to 1, I believe. Yeah, I mean, 1 isn't 0, so now they're dead. And this is Mind Blast Cloning Gallery Priest. So I'll probably play 2 more games, and then just to kind of get some more repetitions in so you can see how the decks play, get a feel for it, that kind of stuff. And then if you ever have any questions about just plays I make or just general comments, questions about the deck, you can always just comment down below and I'll try and get back to you. And I don't claim to play every game perfect. This deck can be quite complex and everybody makes mistakes, so don't roast me too bad if I do something goofy. So here is probably even Shaman. That's pretty much the most popular Shaman on ladder right now. And Mass Hysteria is pretty good against them. So I'm going to keep that. It's not like the absolute best card against them because sometimes we'll just have random totems in the way that just attack weird and get in the way. But it's pretty decent against board-centric minion decks. Okay, so like last game, we're just going to run the Radiant out there. It doesn't do anything early, you just kind of play it as a 2-drop, and sometimes you can Power Word Shield up. So here, just going to Power Word Shield, only real play. And now we have the option of Holy Smiting the 2/2 or not. And I think I'm going to Holy Smite it. And this is the thing that can get tricky for people who are picking up the deck, is when to be flexible with your removal and your resources. And here, like, the Holy Smite's not going to do anything in this matchup until like turn 12 or something silly like that, because it comes down so late with Velen and Malygos. So it's better to just use it here to remove the Menacing Nimbus so they can't play Earth and Might or any sort of buff effect like Flame Tongue Totem, Direwolf, that kind of thing. So here, I'm just going to attack this, heal my Radiant, and play my other Radiant. That was a good draw. See, these are the just random instances where Mass Dispel's are a good card. Like, we play it to draw through our deck, but it can just shrink random stuff, get rid of some problematic minions' abilities, so it's a pretty decent card to have in the deck. I guess they have Fire Plume Phoenix if they're doing that. Yeah, okay. Makes sense. So here we're just going to Mass Hysteria. And again, we're going to play the one that we kept in our hand, which is the one on the right. Because no matter how these attacks go, it clears the board. So going into turn 6, I would expect, like, again, Fire Elemental, those kinds of things. Just like one big minion, which I'm okay with. So I'd imagine this matchup being a little bit difficult for us, mostly because they play Hex, and Hex can really mess with our Resurrect pools. May I take my turn, opponent? So I think I'm going to Shadow Visions here. Shadow Visions for a Psychic Scream, because we just want board control here. And I'm going to Mass Hysteria again. Because I'd like the Knife Juggler off the board, and it just kills one of the Chain Gangs. So it's likely I'll probably just develop Anduin next turn and get that online, because that'll probably be like the real way we win the game. Like getting board control with that and dealing with the board that way. So I was going to Anduin this turn, but then playing small minions makes me actually want to Psychic Scream. So I can Psychic Scream this, and I'm kind of reading that their hand is removal and 8 drops. So probably like a Hex, Hagatha, Lich King, and then something else. So I'm going to Psychic Scream here, and then bait them into playing a big minion. And when they play a big minion, I'll Anduin, and it'll destroy it, and develop the Anduin while getting value out of the removal aspect of them. Okay. Wonder what this card is that they were thinking about playing last turn. I mean, I just don't have to do anything here, really. I could develop Anduin, but the thing about that is if I develop the Anduin and then they play a big minion, I don't have a way to remove it given my hand right now. So, considering I'm not ending the game anytime soon with Anduin anyways, I'm just going to hold it for a couple more turns. That was a good draw. Get something on the board, kill their elemental. And against Shaman, I kind of want to just leave these up now since they're silenced, because the way Shaman's hero... Okay, never mind. But the way Shaman's hero power works is your hero power will always roll a totem that you don't have on the board. So if I were to leave the... If they didn't play Flame Tongue and I left the spell power and the taunt totem up, then it would have always either rolled the healing or the 1/1. But here we're just going to Scream. We just have pretty much complete control of this game right now. So it's just a matter of, like, closing out the game as quick as possible, pretty much. Yeah, so Sea Giant, I'm glad I saved this Anduin now, because if I didn't, I wouldn't have a clean way to kill the Giant. Yep, now we're just going to start pinging their face. So what we're going to do here... I am going to just ping this and Velen. It's likely they have a Hex in their hand, but If they don't, they just die very quickly. So basically force out a hex here, and then if they hex us, whatever, it's fine. Oh wow. Didn't have a hex. That's really good for us. So do I have... I don't think I have a win this turn. Because the only thing... Let's see. 7 on board. I could ping, which deals 4. Vivid Nightmare. Ping again. That deals 8, so they take 12 from that. And then attack with Velen is 7 more. So that's 19, so they're 9. Yeah, I wouldn't have quite enough to kill them. So what I'm going to do is Spirit Lash, or ping this, Spirit Lash, and then ping and hit. This is kind of the safer play. I could try and bring him to 1. Or, no, I wouldn't have brought him to 1, because the Spirit Lash would have cleared the second Velen, so I would have brought them to 3. Or 5, I think. I think I would have brought him down to 5, but... So here, if we find a Mind Blast, we win. Actually, we don't. No, we don't have enough mana for that. We do take Mind Blast still, though, because we just resurrect here and then force them to kill all of our stuff. Let's just kill this. And then if they can't kill our stuff, then we kill them with Mind Blast next turn. A pretty good draw. Lets them trade into my Velen, which is good for them. Okay, so now they die this turn because I resurrect the Velen and then I Vivid Nightmare it and then deal lots of damage to them. All right, so I don't want this video to be too long, so I'll just kind of end it right here. So I hope this video kind of helped break down what Four-Minion Cloning Gallery Priest is, how it's different from the other version, its strengths, its weaknesses, and I hope walking through some games helped you kind of understand the deck a little better. So if you like this video, if you thought it was helpful, or if you know somebody who it could help and they find it useful, then just make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share it with people who could potentially use it. So thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you later.